Everyone dreams about living an uncommon life, but how we define that dream is very different for each of us. And for most, it's a lifelong pursuit. Welcome to the Uncommon Life Project podcast. We're going to introduce you to people who are living that life or enjoying the journey to get there. We're going to also give you some tools, tricks, and tips for starting or accelerating your own efforts to live an uncommon life, a life worth celebrating and savoring. Please welcome your hosts, Brian Dewhurst and Philip Ramsey.
Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Uncommon Life Project, where I'm your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I am Brian Dewhurst.
Thanks for tuning in. We're grateful that you're here, and we know that your time is valuable. So we really want to try to pack as much value as we can, and I cannot wait to get our guest on the show. Super blessed to have him in studio for the second time because I botched something the first time. Okay, I just feel like we need to say that. All right,
I appreciate you owning it.
Yeah, it's totally me. And also, I'm actually not too mad because I really like this guest and I like this guy. So, Sheldon, let's talk about his bio, and then we'll get him in the show, and then we'll go from there.
Yes, we have the one and only Sheldon Speers. He's a former security engineer turned entrepreneur and has launched the company Tenax Solutions here in Ankeny, Iowa. Welcome to the show, Sheldon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
That's right. That's right. Okay, we got to go back to how did we meet? And then you tell your side, I'll tell my side, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was at DMAC here in Ankeny. It's a community college for those of you that aren't familiar. Go Bears.
Go Bears.
So I'm sitting there, studying tech, studying cybersecurity, and was always like business kind of minded. Always wanted to start my own business, and I fell in love with cybersecurity at the same time. And then Philip, so I was a D group, or in a D group, I was a C group leader through Salt Company. Philip, at the same church, was an elder, came and kind of talked to us about, being financially, smart, starting your own business, working for yourself. I was like, man, that's kind of cool. And so I started talking to Philip. We went out, had coffee. And then from there, I was like, dude, I think I'm just going to quit my job. Like, I have $4,500 in my savings. Like, I think I'm just going to go.
I'm rich.
And I knew nothing about business. Like, I didn't even know what like a proposal was or a P&L or even like literally nothing. And like in the most humble way possible, Philip was just like, maybe not yet. Like go out, learn the industry a little bit more. And so, and then from there we just kind of stayed in touch.
That's right.
It wasn't a no. It was a not right now.
Definitely
not yet.
No. And like, I think the first, for people who don't know what D groups and C groups are, it's basically like a leader of a smaller group of people studying the Bible, studying the Word of God. Yep. Pretty sweet. So Sheldon was doing that, so demonstrated that he had a high capacity for leadership, which, I geek out about that. So I was giving this speech or little talk to a couple of leaders, and I was talking about the talents, like how talents were given, and you have to be a good steward of your talents. And I remember just edifying all of them. First, I think there's a lot of back perspective or like negative condensation to having a community school and having a 2-year school. And I just remember edifying them all. Like, what if you're the smartest people in this country who are trying to get your education as quickly as possible to go out into the real world? Which a lot of things, and people who have listened to the show already know that Brian and I have kind of this little chip on our shoulder about a 4-year college that you're like, hey, go find your life and go into a lot of debt. Just doesn't make a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. So I remember just edifying them of like, hey, maybe you guys are the smartest people here, just doing what you need to do to study what you want to study and get out and do something. And Sheldon and I connected, and that's when we had coffee. And I remember that faithful day when you were like, I got it. This is it. I'm going to do it. And it wasn't that it was a bad idea. In fact, I saw it was a really good idea. I just didn't want him to go out in the real world and just get backhanded and like not make it. Does that make sense? Like there is some kind of confidence that you need to get pretty early. Mm-hmm. And cash flow is probably king, especially coming out of any college, 2-year, 4-year, doesn't matter.
Yeah, 6-year.
You just need a W. Yeah, 6-year. Shout out to my friends. So you just need some kind of success. And that's what I was like, man, coming out of college, a 2-year, trying to run upstream, I could see that getting really tiresome pretty quick, getting a no after no after no. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not going to be the case. I just thought the risks were just too high.
Yep.
And so what you end up doing after that. Hold on, Brian, anything you want to say? Because I feel like I'm just...
No, I echo the 2-year school thing. I mean, I think, it does get a bad rap. And just heard success story out of success story out of that, and it's fun to have you here and, just getting that out in the open right off the bat, and it's not like a negative or something that's held you back,
Another thing too, I think we should talk about is because you were dating somebody at the time, right?
Yeah, my current wife.
Your
Yes.
current wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you were dating somebody, and that was another. I think that
Another layer.
that like
Yeah.
made me think through that of like, hey, like you're going to come out of this, going to start jumping into this business full time or trying to, and you also want to get married because you guys were pretty serious back then
Right.
too.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, dude, like you don't want to do this yet. Like,
Right.
make sure you
Right.
got the base layer
Because there's somebody coming with you. It's not like he was alone.
Right. Make sure that you got your cash flow and your base layer, and almost like get your experience from somebody else because you had
Right.
raw talent. Like you had leadership and you had talent, which anybody would eat that up. So, okay, sorry to take the thunder away from you.
No, yeah. And so I took the advice. And so at that time, I was working as a security consultant, intern at a large payments company here in town in Des Moines. And then after that, I got a job working as an application security engineer. And so I took that and then, paid off my student loans, which wasn't very much because it was at DMAC. Paid that off and then was just banking, a savings for the time that I was going to, jump off the cliff. But I was making cold calls in the morning. So like in the morning, before I went into work at like 7 a.m., it was 8 a.m. on the East Coast. So I could hit some companies out there. After work in California, it's 2 hours before. So at 5, it's only 3 out there. So I'd go home, rip through some dials. Yes. And then at my lunch break, I'd take like an hour. I'd just go park in the parking lot of Target and sit there cold call. And then from there, just slowly but surely started getting clients. And then after that year at DHI was the company I was at, spent another about 8 months at a different company doing the same thing until finally I was able to quit my job and go full time with it.
Wow, I love this. I love this because although I was like, hey, make sure you do this right. Like, let's get a job at first. But like, let's don't lose the end in mind, which is you want to start a business. So what are things that you can do in your current job as you're getting money, consistent money? What can you do to then forward this company that you have a passion for? That's exactly what you did. Now, it is going to be a sacrifice, right? Like, I mean, you had basically a full-time job, and I would say another full-time job. I was going to say part-time, but it really wasn't. Like, you're waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning, dialing, what would it be? That would be East Coast. Or 7 o'clock, because it's 8 o'clock there, right?
Right.
And then over lunch, and then after work, which is now, so 5 o'clock our time.
Coast,
Yeah, 3 o'clock Pacific time.
Yeah.
And then you would have 2 hours to call people. Like,
yeah. And then a lot of what, if you're out there doing cold calls, like don't shy away from Saturday morning either. Because most business owners are probably working Saturday mornings at least. And so,
the good ones. The good ones.
Do some cold calling Saturday morning because then they're like, man, this guy's cold calling on a Saturday. Like I respect him, So
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a cool part of your story is just, burning the candle a little bit at both ends and making it work. And, you're courting, this girl who's now your wife. When did you get engaged in that period in this part of the story?
It was about probably 8 months after I decided to we got engaged about 8 months after I started really going after the business.
Nice.
What? Let's talk through this. How many calls do you think you had to make before you got your first yes?
So I went 13 months before I got my first actual signed contract.
Wow.
Before I got my first meeting, I made 250 cold calls.
Oh my goodness.
I'll tell you what, when I have kids, there's two things I'm going to make them do. It's manual labor and then cold call because that stuff builds character. And I was just learning to get rejection and be okay with it, not take it personally and just keep going. I truly think if I didn't make those cold calls, the business probably wouldn't be running today.
1,000%.
I would have shied away from any, rejection or rejection's okay. If you get 1 out of every 100 people that you knock on the door, you're doing pretty well. So.
Which is I think in a lot of the direct mail and marketing campaigns, it's 2%. I mean, you're hitting 2-3%. You're doing it.
Right.
And so that mindset shift is so different.
Yep.
You have to have that view or you're going to go crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
What was the cold call like? Hello? What would you say?
So I kind of got it down to a science. I won't share too much because
Is that part of your secret sauce?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay, okay, don't do it.
But it was just like, you call, and then what you call like the gatekeeper, so the secretary, right? Like you can't, I keep my morals in, so I don't just lie and say, hey, I already have a meeting with the business owner, but like try your best to kind of get around that. Or, if you hit like the sales line, so like a lot of people have the automated stuff, you just go to sales. Chances are, if the company is under 20 employees, the owners or somebody who's in charge still oversees sales. So I could go to them, and then, I would be like with the CFO or like the chief strategy officer or something like that, to where they could actually make those decisions, versus like, if you go to a company that has 100 employees, I might just get to an account executive that can't make those decisions. So.
And then you just say, hey, here's my business. This is what I like to do.
Yeah. I would come to them with like a partnership opportunity. So I started off in the managed service provider. So I'd go to them and say, hey, here's how, we can partner. Here's how you can make money. I'd always lead with that. So like, providing value first and then asking for it second. Would just ask to provide the value. And like most people just said no. But, some people said yes. And yeah.
So tell us about the first yes, because that's the best. Those yeses.
So the first yes, it was with a company. So we met, he seemed like somewhat interested, but I was like, like everybody kind of seems that way. And then about 3 months later, they emailed us, said, hey, we want to partner, but we'd like for you to do a test on us first, before like we'd refer you to our clients. I think it was like $1,500, but like easily the best $1,500 I've ever made in my life. Like it was like, I'm rich.
Yeah. It was a rich.
Like it was awesome.
Validation.
Yeah.
Hard work. Proof of concept.
For sure.
I think, too, the thing that was interesting just hearing how you answered those questions so quickly is most business owners, I would say like smaller business owners, maybe, like don't know their numbers very well. And I think that's one thing we noticed very quickly is like if we're asking the business owners for their numbers and they don't want to give their numbers up, it's typically like things aren't going as well as they thought it would be, and they hide from that, and then they don't want to dig into the numbers. And so I just think it was kudos to you, like how quickly you knew your numbers, and it's just so important,
Yeah, it is. Numbers are everything.
Right. So you get your first yes, which is like cloud nine.
Yeah.
Proof of concept. So you know it's going to work. There's value there.
Yep.
Where were you at headspace wise going back to your job? Was it in the morning, or was it over lunch, or was that in the night time?
That was in the afternoon.
Okay.
When I got it.
So you had to go back to the old office.
Yeah. Yep.
But a little bit of uptick in your step.
Yeah.
Super excited.
Yep.
Okay. So then you go back and you have to work. How much longer was it that you worked? Because what we find is you might have a little bit of success, but there comes a point where you like can only take it to the next level if you take this proverbial jump off the cliff or the bridge. Like you have to go all in. There is no like, well, maybe I can. It can only scale so much unless you jump off. So how much longer were you in that employee role before you jumped?
Yeah, so it was 13 months to where I was like working on the side, made the first sale, and then it was another 12 months before I actually made the jump. And in that next 12 months, so mind you, all this is happening like during COVID. And what we do in cybersecurity, it's a lot of proactive. So a lot of people, like if there are budget cuts, like our stuff's the first thing to go. And so like during COVID, it was really, really tough, especially being a new business. Like I was 21, trying to pitch these guys, like, what does this kid know? So yeah. And then we made, over those next 12 months, I only made another 2 sales. But the last one that we made was a decent sized one. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like COVID's kind of taken an end. I feel really good about it. And like you said, if you don't take that step, it's you're just going to kind of keep in that slow cycle and never really go. I was young, not really expenses. And so, yeah, just took it.
How is your fiance at that point, or now you're married?
Married.
Okay.
Yeah.
How was she and all that?
Good question.
She was all for it. I think mainly, so her dad's an entrepreneur and he started his own concrete company. So like she got to see like from the time he went out on his own and like, really hard times, really good times, like long hours working every single Saturday. So she kind of grew up and saw that, and she was all for it. I think because like we didn't have a mortgage, still don't have a mortgage. like don't have kids, like no car payments, no student loans. So like
It was time to take the risk.
kind of
We were okay with that.
set ourselves up, for the time to take the risk versus, 6 years from now, that's probably not going to be the case.
Right.
So if there's a time to fail, it's when you're young.
So I want you to just give kind of a plug for Tenax, like doing penetrative testing and all this stuff. Like talk
Yeah.
about the actual company itself, because I know that there's a lot of listeners that we have that are small business owners and are like, what's happening? And so I think that could be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Tenax Solutions, we're a information security consulting company. So we provide anything from like offensive security solutions, which means we go in and actually find vulnerabilities, to defensive cybersecurity solutions, which means we go in, we act as like kind of your go-to cybersecurity people for anything like compliance, vulnerability remediation, like fixing security gaps, or if folks have new compliances that they're trying to meet, different things like that. We come in and kind of help them and augment onto their existing business versus going out and having to, hire like a security engineer, because a company of like 15 people can't go out and hire a 6-figure security engineer, or like even if they could, they don't want to.
Right.
So that's where we kind of come in and we're kind of that go-to cybersecurity partner for folks that aren't, $100 million companies.
That's awesome. Okay, I love it. So, okay, let's go back to now you're jumped in full time. This is the whole thing. What's the first day look like?
So I actually, when I first jumped in, I took a fishing trip with my dad
There
to
it
kind
is.
of celebrate. Yeah, I
for
took
sure.
a 6-day long, like full fishing trip just
Good
to
for
kind of
you.
let it set in.
Yeah.
Before I like really hit the grindstone. But then, when I came back, I just kept doing what I was doing, just to more volume. So cold calling, I invested in some like email marketing and different like campaigns and stuff. Went out, got an investor, which helped a lot with like the like marketing stuff and having some capital kind of behind me to go out and actually compete with big cybersecurity firms. And so then I just kind of kept doing what I had been doing.
Right. Let's talk about the investor part of it, because I think that's a really good way to grow a business. You can go debt, you can do it all cash, you can try to investors. So tell us how that worked, and how did you pitch that? How did you structure that? All that stuff.
Yeah. So before I actually quit my job, I reached out to this guy who's like one of my buddy's dads, who I knew he was really successful. Just growing up in a small town, you kind of hear, who has money, who's being successful. And so I'd, heard about what he does and knew he invested a lot, chief revenue officer, sales. I was like, oh, this could be interesting. I was going to quit my job either way. But I just told him, here, I sent a cold email. I said, back to the numbers thing. I laid out all of my numbers just in bullet points. He wrote back, interested. That's it. And so I was like, hey, let's set up a meeting.
That's all we needed. That's all we needed. Thank you.
Yeah. So he gives me a call on like a Tuesday afternoon and was just talking about it. I laid out everything. I created a pitch deck of just like the business plans, what problems I'm trying to solve in Tenax, like what's my 1, 3, 5-year goal? What numbers do I think I can hit? Here's kind of the growth plan of everything, put in a really nice, neat deck. And so after that call, sent him that. And then we had one more call just about it. And then came to a deal.
Ta-da.
Yeah. I don't know if that's how it always goes, but that's,
It's not. It's not actually.
Yeah, 100% success rate in deals.
Yeah.
No, that's super cool. And I think, we tell a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, I think 95% of businesses fail just due to a lack of capital or a lack of capitalization. And so, that's so critical how you keep the buckets full, so to speak, in that first 5 years, as you ramp, and it's just a constant reinvestment and, trying to grow your cash base, but also your revenue base and employee base. And
Well, to me, it's kind of like I love analogies, so sorry if you're the first time listening, it's just going to happen. It's like getting yourself a longer runway. Like you have a longer runway to make sure that the hangar's going to get off the runway. And so for you, it was probably peace of mind. One, you already jumped, which is probably nice for the investor. So the investor's not like, so I have to invest in this before you'll jump. It's kind of like,
right.
yeah.
But you were all in, and he was just like, all right, I'll give you wind for your parachute a little bit. And so you had a longer runway to then start crafting out, what do you want this to be? And so it was just you right away. Correct?
Yeah. And I mean, with the investor, like, I think another thing I'll say about it and encourage other folks is like, don't be so concerned about like how much equity you own in your company. Like, and think about, 10 years from now, what is this going to cost me? Like, because the just kind of the mental fortitude that you get by having that investor and not always being worried about like just, being able to kind of pay yourself or like just meet ends, like having that investment capital allows you to focus on growth instead of focus on just, meeting kind of that bottom dollar of whatever that is. So,
Right.
Yeah, you'd much rather have like 80% of 50 to 100 million than like 100% of
exactly.
maybe 1 million,
Exactly.
What's his involvement currently now?
Yeah, so he's our chief revenue officer. We meet every week, and we probably talk at least every other day, if not every day, just about different deals, about the company, how things are going. He comes from a heavy sales background, so he gives me like a ton of insight on sales, and he's been around business his whole life. He's 56, so like he has a lot of experience in this. So it's just like constant kind of wisdom that I could get.
You're just a sponge.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So then it's you. When is your first employee, and like how did you define what role you needed when you were ready to then take the plunge into that? Let's have two mouths to feed. This is great.
Yeah. Yeah, we pretty much just put out a job description, and like I had a few people in my network that I'd like to bring on, and so yeah, reached out to him. He said he would, and so he kind of came on. But.
Another one. Not usually how it happens. Not for Sheldon, everybody. The golden touch. So you got him. He just said, "Okay,
yeah,
we're in."
Yep, and then kind of same thing with the other guy.
What was his role? Quickly.
Chief technology officer.
Okay, and then what was your role?
CEO,
Okay,
founder. Yeah. So really all that means is he handles the security stuff. I handle the sales and business stuff.
there it was.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
But yeah, I mean, that's obviously like freed up a lot of time and just, put us on a road for growth. So.
Right. Okay.
So all this is happening. We kind of talked a little bit, pre the call. You're growing your business. Everybody's kind of working from home. It's COVID. You're kind of almost forced into the situation too. Now we're coming out of that. You've got a larger organization.
How many people are working with you now?
Yeah.
Like
There's
how are we working for you?
Yeah, there's 7 of us.
Okay.
That's a combined between full-time employees, like the investor, and then a couple contractors here and there. So.
Right. 7's not bad though. It
Yeah.
means there's business coming in.
Yeah.
And it's probably easier now once you hit your first bucket to keep getting deals, right? Like, hey, this is now you're tailoring it down to like, this is a specific thing that we're getting good traction with. Let's keep calling those kind of companies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah, the market has definitely told us kind of where to go, and we've been able to listen to that and then kind of tailor it in.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, much, and just like the infrastructure that we have built out, like, with more revenue and more employees comes like better website, better kind of public presence.
Right.
It looks like we have more experience because we do, client logos on the website, things like that. So
Yeah. Perspective is a big deal. Like if you could look the part and you already have the knowledge. Sometimes it's now I just need to look the part.
Right.
And then people are attracted to that.
Yeah.
It's good.
Well, and it seems like with where everything is headed digitally, doesn't seem like it's going to let up for the services that you provide and the vulnerabilities that are out there. You want to kind of talk just about where you see the, marketplace heading in terms of, protecting oneself or one's business from, threats?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously everybody's talking about blockchain, right? We just brought on our first like blockchain client a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's big, but without getting too technical, I think, two of the biggest things are like cybersecurity awareness for employees. Like you can have all the fancy tools and stuff, but like
You click on the wrong email, she all
or
goes
like
down.
somebody calls you and, tries to get your credentials. And if you give those out, like it all goes back to the basics. So that's one is just general awareness for a company. And then I think supply chain is huge because like, all these companies have these different apps and these different, SaaS platforms that have hooks into their organization. So like, you don't have to just worry about your cybersecurity. Like if your vendor XYZ also has, access into all that data, now your kind of threat landscape has just doubled. Or, if you have 6 different, vendors that have access into all of your stuff, now you have 6 different companies that you have to, somewhat, keep tabs on. Yeah. So I think that's a big thing that I don't think a lot of people have grasped yet is like, it's not just your cybersecurity, it's also the companies that have hooks into your organization's cybersecurity. So just a lot of vendor vetting.
That's good.
Really good.
So what do you see the future of Tenax Solutions? Like, as you're sitting here looking at the next 10 years, what does it look like for the company? How are you leading that? Yeah, let's start there because I have more questions. You know that.
Yeah. So this year we're building our platform. So Tenax IQ, it's a vulnerability management and compliance platform that we'd like to bring to the mid-market. There's a lot of tools out there for like enterprises and things to do everything through kind of a SaaS portal in cybersecurity. So our big goal is to get that to market and then get that be a really good presence in 2022 going into 2023. And then expand in the markets that we hit. There's a few industries that we'd really like to tap into. Our goal is to hire 3 more people this year. And so probably looking at Q3, Q4 to do that. And then in the next 10 years, hopefully just growing and staying on point.
For sure. At what point, like, and this is probably something you can't answer, but let's just talk through it. At what point do you feel like you have to let the reins go to then grow to the next level? Have you ever thought through that? Like thinking about how big the company could get and the need seems to be getting bigger. Let's just be honest. At what point do you say to yourself, like, maybe there's somebody else to take us to the next level? Have you ever thought through that kind of thought?
Yeah, I've always said, when I turn 30, so I'm 23 right now, like when I turn 30 is when I'll kind of evaluate if I want to keep doing this and keep in the industry. And or sell or get out or continue doing it. I think that's kind of the point to where I would, and obviously that's such a long time away. So like it's hard for me to tell right now. But I've always said like 30 is when I'll evaluate that. Until 30, I'm just going to keep my head down and grind and kind of try my best. Yeah, just build and try my best not to kind of focus on that too much. But it is fun to sit here and like think about the what ifs.
Absolutely. Especially when you have a successful thing going.
Right.
And you're impacting not only your clients, but you're impacting now employees and you're having leadership things that you now get to pour into.
Yeah.
Which is always something I've seen in you. So I think that's really cool. And I think it's very mature to just be like, all right, at this point, let's reevaluate.
Yep.
Not even like having an endpoint, but let's reevaluate. I think that's wise.
And I mean, that build part, I mean, is just, there's so many hours that go into it. So I think while I'm 23, I'm young and can like put in those kind of crazy hours. I don't think I'll want, like, I know I don't want to work like this my entire life. So I think that's why 30 is kind of my okay, let's reevaluate and see where we want to go.
Yeah, because your business is 24/7.
Yeah,
Threat watch. I feel like it's nice in our business. The stock market's only open 18% of the time, which especially when it's down, it makes it helpful.
Sure.
That it shuts down, but that is the difference with I think your business, and as you kind of related to the blockchain, like the blockchain doesn't sleep either. And so that's kind of a shift, in our business is going from open 18 hours, or 18% of the time to 100% of the time. How do you manage that through weekends, through nights, through, that's it's kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's a lot of reading. It's a lot of research. A lot of just, communication, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So like for the people who are just tuning in for Sheldon, which I get it, he's amazing. Thanks for tuning in. And I think it is kind of nice just to know like what Uncommon Wealth Partners does. That's the company that Brian and I have started. That's the brand that we've started. And our number one value is that you are your best asset. And like when Sheldon and I talk, I wasn't trying to think of like what Roth IRA can I open up for him. I was thinking more of like, what can we do to invest in the skills that you have and the knowledge and the experience that you've had in your past to then get you excited and then level you up. That's what we do every day. We sit down with people, we try to figure out what their experiences are, what their passions are, and we try to put like a roadmap around that to help them get to where they want to go in a quicker manner. Because at the end of the day, if you wake up every morning and you love what you do, chances are you don't really want to stop doing that. And that's way better than maybe a big 401k account that you are super excited about, but you hate your job every day. So that was a different mindset for us. And every day we get to sit down with our clients, potential clients, and scale their mind of like, no, but how's God uniquely gifted you? And so from the moment I saw Sheldon, I just knew that he had potential and he had a passion, not only just to pour into what he's excited about, but pour into others. And it's shown.
Yeah,
so like,
it's
this is so fun to interview him and get his story out, because his Uncommon is amazing. And his company is amazing, and it's helping a lot of people. And so great job taking the plunge. Great job. Thanks for taking my advice of just, hey, stay strong, get that cash flow, because it is a huge thing.
Yeah.
But also having the discipline and work ethic to then work in the morning, noon, and then at night for something you're excited about. And then also leading now a family. You got a wife, and I can't wait to see what all that happens. But, kids, hopefully in the future for you. And also just a successful future for Tenax. And, I'm going to always be in the sideline cheering you on. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I think, that speaks a lot to you guys. Like, you didn't have to give me that advice, like, to a 19-year-old kid, right? But you did. You took time out of your day. So that says a lot about just the Uncommon Wealth Project. And it shows that you guys, really stick to that. So
Right.
It's really cool and
Appreciate
some of the
saying that.
best advice I've gotten.
that's cool.
Awesome.
Well, you've been listening to the Uncommon Life Project. I've been your host, Philip Ramsey.
And I'm Brian Dewhurst.
Until next time, Sheldon, thanks for being here. Go be uncommon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
That's all for this episode of the Uncommon Life Project, brought to you by Uncommon Wealth Partners. Be sure to visit uncommonwealth.com to learn more about our services. Don't miss an episode as we introduce you to inspiring people who are actively pursuing an uncommon life.